I've noticed. And that's how Tim died on film.
Yeah, on film. We have an expensive setup here for film. Welcome to Saints on Cinema. I'm Tim Wilde, and Lance is here with me. And we just watched the most amazing movie called Dune.
Only it wasn't that Dune.
Not the good Dune.
Well, we don't know if it's good or not, but
okay, not the modern Dune. This was the 19.
But at least it has a chance of being good, whereas this one,
the boats are in on this one.
long
1984
before us.
Dune.
We
just
didn't
finished
just
it.
believe the old people. We had to experience it for ourselves and judge it.
Take in
properly.
the 80s culture that surrounded this dynamic movie that has made history in science fiction film. And so no one ever talks about this movie other than everyone's excited about the new movie. And now that having seen this movie, I understand why they're so excited about the new version.
No, they're excited about the new version because the books are still incredibly popular.
All right. So we watched Dune. The new one comes out at the end of the month, and Lance wants to read the book again, as you
We
read it
watched
before.
84.
So Lance wanted to have time to read the book.
No. I wanted to have time to read the book, but I heard that this movie is so
Awesome.
it's really hard to understand. So I was like, well, before I read the book and then I know what's going on, I want to watch this movie to see if I can understand it.
And did you understand the movie?
I think I understood like the major plot points and sort of what the plot. Well, the problem was like
the execution.
the execution was terrible.
Yeah. So we'll talk about some basic stuff, but Lance wants to read the book before the new movie comes out at the end of this month, next month, October. And so we want to watch the movie, give him time to read the book. I'm not going to read the book. We're lucky I watched this movie because, I mean, I can't imagine the script of this movie was much shorter than the actual book. I mean, this was a really long, drawn-out movie.
Oh, no, the book is supposed to... Well, that's what they're saying is that they're like, well, we don't have enough time to make this movie and do this book in one movie. In fact, the new movie is only half of it. They're supposed to do 2 movies.
Yeah, but this movie could have told this story in like much shorter time with what they told us.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they skipped a lot of stuff for this movie, so it sounds like they could have actually included it and
in
told
this
a better
movie.
story.
They skipped a ton of stuff. They skipped development of everything. This movie was like 100% plot. And some really crappy battle scenes. And
so let's just talk about very quickly our 5 categories. So first of all, characters. Everyone in here seemed like there was either the characters that had herpes all over their mouths.
No, but I was thinking
black latex characters or bald women.
Which character did they develop the most? And the only thing I think of is the floating fat guy with zits. Like seriously, he's the one we care about the most.
Well, he was the most interesting because we're looking at them pop his zits and stuff and drain them, and then he pulls like the heart zit off of the other guy, and he blows up. And we're so fascinated trying to figure out what's going on that we don't even know what we're looking at.
Was it like a soak in the youngling's blood like helps his
because it seemed like either they got lazy on the makeup, you have to tell me what the book says, or the zits started getting better and better over the
and then he's homoerotic first what's the
I don't know which guy. They're all the same.
Starts with the S.
I don't know. Sting,
yeah. Sting.
So Sting comes in, and Lance got excited about that. Do we know? What was he like? A bounty hunter? Was he like the Darth Vader guy? Was he, or the kind of the Boba Fett guy? It seemed like they were like mercenaries. He comes in, he's like twirling his little blade, and you're like, can't wait to see that. At the end. Yeah, that's it. So that's the
he's like his bodyguard or something.
It's better than him falling in a Sarlacc pit.
His lover bodyguard.
Who died off camera, suddenly his head's on a platter. We don't even see how that happened.
And they establish how they have a plot to kill him by his father. The one guy wants him dead.
Not a story plot for the movie, a conspiracy plot.
Yeah, he puts the poison tooth in, and then he kills the wrong guy, and like seriously,
that was what that
all
was?
the cool plots revolved around the Zit Man. And the little girl comes,
and he had the
she's
glorified
the one that
death at the end.
Yeah.
Even Sting gets stabbed. That's it. His little blood down his throat. Oh, spoilers! Sting dies. A little blood stream, but like. The Darth Vader Zit guy, he like gets He gets like killed. She slits his throat. He like floats off, spins around in the room, floats out of the ship, and then gets swallowed by a worm. And I'm like, that was the most excitement of the whole movie, and it probably took as long as like half of the interest or the big scenes that were going on. Anyway, so yeah, characters. I couldn't tell you much about him other than there's the Messiah. What's his name? The main guy. Which
and you're like more attracted to the narrator at the beginning,
who's like
she's all decked out and she's pretty and she
floating. By the way, floating in space.
Yeah, and then you never see her until the end of the movie, and she doesn't do anything but stand there.
She like looks to the guy next to her, and he's like doesn't respond. He's like, what?
And the love interest, you have zero interest in her
because they don't tell us anything about her.
She appears. And she's in love because he had a dream about her.
But it shows quite a few shots during montages of other things going on, like battle training or exploring or they're mining or whatever. And it keeps cutting to them like setting it like just for a shoulder shot, and they're not wearing anything. So you're like, oh, they're having sex and they're in love.
So they're in love. Yeah. They must be in love. And why are they in love? Because they had a dream about each other.
Yeah. Anyway, so we don't know names. Who was on whose side? Everyone dresses the same, so it was hard to figure out what was going on.
There was a religion, the Bene Jesuits or something like that.
I couldn't tell you a single character.
But I couldn't figure out, like, so was the little girl was like part of them, and the mom was part of them, and the old lady was part of them. But all at the same time,
women,
it felt like that they were enemies. Mm-hmm. And so
with the blue eyes.
And why the heck did the little girl come in at the end? She's like, my brother's gonna get you guys. And we're like, okay. Who are you again?
Yeah.
But she was like born quicker than she should have been.
And she was maturing quicker than everyone else with rapid growth.
That's the whole thing about this movie. It was like, this is what happened. And
so you have a narrator. And then you have the characters with their internal monologues that they're projecting out audibly to the camera. But then they also talk to each other with half sentences. Like, so you're getting the story 3 times in a row.
They have like telepathy sometimes, but sometimes it's just them talking to the audience, and sometimes it's just them talking to themselves.
And you can't tell. And they don't. Sometimes there'll be a picture like with 2 people, and you'll just hear this narration. We don't like the movie.
Oh, and then on top of that, you got an extra later where if they speak like that, that means that they're mind controlling you. And then, and then on top of that, they have the Mormon Tabernacle choir weapons, where if they put like a thing around them and point like
their speaker collar,
their Nerf guns at you, and then they go, and it'll blow you up or something.
Yeah. So in spite of all of that opportunity for the exposition in this film, we have no idea what's going on the entire time.
But that's the thing. Like I said, we don't care about any of these characters.
No.
Like, and why should... Well, okay, so it was interesting in the beginning, like, there was a little bit of a character arc when he, like, sticks his hand in the special box.
An arc? Or you mean a setup?
Like, in a character arc.
It was like a setup.
Arc. It was the beginning of an arc. And he's like has to hold his hand, and so that was cool.
In this
that
pain
was character
machine.
development.
Yeah,
that was the only character development of him throughout the entire movie. The rest is just like, okay, now I'm the Messiah.
And all I got is you're supposed to. She puts his hand in there, and he's just suffering this pain, and she's like, "Don't take your hand out!"
and then
he's like,
kill you.
And it starts showing his hand melting and peeling off and everything, which looked really cool, by the way.
The special effects for the time were interesting.
Yeah, we'll get to the special effects, but that's all happening, and she's like, "Don't take your hand out, or you're a wuss," and he leaves it in there.
She's like, "Wow, you kept it in the longest of anybody. Yeah. You must be the Messiah."
She goes off on all this this dialogue about not faith. Was it faith? Yeah, not faith. What was she talking about? It wasn't pain.
No, it was like pain is a weakness or something.
It was, yeah. And it's like this is more about just enduring pain. It has nothing to do with faith. I don't know, it wasn't faith. It was something else, but whatever. And nothing to. It was more about pain, but it wasn't about pain. It was about whatever.
Yeah, there was weird little things like that they never developed, and then there was like, where does the spice come from? And they're like, oh, it has something to do with the worms, and that was it.
Yeah, like,
we never learned anything.
Even
else
though there's like
spice.
Civilizations living on this moon planet or the Dune planet, and they know all about it, they have the same religion or whatever, the blue eyes and everything as the other people. And then they show up and like, here they are, and then they see the sandworm come up and eat this like mining drone or this vehicle, and like we're like, oh, we've never.
So they established, they established that the worms are very violent
and huge.
And then the one guy's like, no, guys, just get your shovel and go like this. And it like lifts him up, and then he's like, okay, you put a hook in this thing, and you put a hook in, and now you can drive it.
Yeah.
And I know this because I'm God. Okay. All right.
Yeah, they establish how horrifying these things are and gigantic they are, and he just gets right on top, and he just puts it in his 2 little pores on the top, and he's like just like riding like a dog sled.
But then they go into the battle, in which the worms don't do anything.
The big climactic battle at the end, where they're just like,
yeah, like you expected them to be like eating the fortress.
Yeah.
But no, they just sit there and flap around.
Yeah, with their mouth gaping, and that's it. Meanwhile, they're like shooting them from on top of it with their little voice guns or Nerf guns, and they're just exploding everywhere. And that's the story. I mean, getting into story, characters and story, that's the big thing. That's the other category. But like, the plot of this movie was just so, there was no climax, there was no tension, there was no stakes, there was nothing.
Like zero tension through the whole
You're watching it, and the Messiah guy, he's like, he had a dream, I have to go drink the magic water.
Yeah, the only tension was like the creepy zip popping, and like you're like, what creepy thing is gonna happen next?
And that's the uneasiness of the audience. It has nothing to do with the story. We're just like, what are they doing? Showing like the fetuses and weird stuff like that.
Yeah, it was really sort of like, it reminded me of like art films where it's more visceral without plot, where you're just seeing like weird magical scenes or whatever, and it's just feelings, that give you feelings.
Just to make you like uneasy.
And that's it. I almost feel like it would have been a better movie if that's all it was. But then they put like this really boring, like complicated plot in there without any development, and with characters that you don't care anything about. And then it's like, see, guys, we could make a movie out of the Dune books.
So you have to tell me when you read the book if there's actual tension and stakes in the plot of the story.
I actually read it, but it was like in high school, so like 20 plus years ago. And I don't remember anything
Everyone
about
loves
it.
this world,
but I remember
too.
it was a great book. So
we'll see.
We'll go back and read it.
And everyone talks about a lot of stuff that George Lucas ripped off from, or was inspired by, from Dune when he wrote Star Wars. This movie came out after Return of the Jedi a year later. So George Lucas coming up with stuff would have been from reading the book from the 60s. So and that was my thought. I was like, how much of what we're seeing here was imagery that was stolen from the Star Wars universe, which were concepts that were stolen from the book of Dune. So I don't know. That's interesting.
Imagery
is actually in the book.
Dune still from Star Wars when they made the movie.
Right. So it'll be interesting what you can say how much of the imagery was actually translated onto the screen.
What I thought was really interesting was the CG, because Star Wars didn't have, the lasers and maybe the lightsabers were CG. But outside of that,
it was practical explosions and models, and
Dune had the first
puppetry.
Their little shield thing was like polygons, and that's all. It was actual polygons.
They did have, they had like hyperspace, and there was some other stuff that was, and the CGI on the, I guess you would call it CGI, but the computer graphics of like the Death Star and the training. Stuff like that was actually some of the first time you ever saw CG, but this had much. Well, I'm not gonna say much more interesting, but had just as good of that kind of stuff.
No, I thought it felt to me like for the time that was pretty groundbreaking, but I'd have to compare it to I wonder when Terminator came out.
That was 85, 86.
When did this movie come out?
84.
Okay, so
Terminator may have been 7-ish. I don't know. But that's not you're talking about the lasers and the stuff that happens in the future in Terminator. You're talking about that kind of stuff.
I'm talking about morphine. Terminator was.
Oh, that's Terminator 2. That was in 92.
Okay.
Yeah, that was almost a decade later.
I don't know. I wonder when Lawnmower Man came out.
Can't compared to this movie. I think that was 90s though. All right, so story was whatever. You'll watch.
It sounded like there was a really cool story there. They just didn't. I would like to say they didn't have enough time to develop it, but it wasn't.
Movie.
They just decided to waste it on stupid stuff.
Yeah.
It was almost like they're like, we don't have enough time to cover all the plot points of the book in detail, so we'll just go over the plot points completely.
Yeah.
but we won't go into detail on anything, and so it's just like
spend
a
5
minutes
of 5 minutes with a syringe floating through a room and like have a big sequence about that doesn't really.
Yeah, so I didn't understand. There were 4 planets, right?
There was only 3.
I thought there was 4.
They had a little. They had. This is how deep this world is. They had charts to tell the audience what's going on.
There was Dune.
Yeah.
There was the planet that the Duke was on.
Okay.
And then wasn't there the planet with the Baron that was the fat guy?
Yeah, that was the 3rd planet.
And
then the alien.
Yeah, was that
thing.
What the 4 planets were?
And
what was I couldn't understand what the alien he was the one. The alien creature was the one that allowed them to warp drive or what?
Oh, I don't know.
Fold space.
Was he allowing that?
That's what I thought. And he's the one that's like, you got to kill a house of what's his name, Paul Atreus, for reasons. because he's God.
It's another example. It was like the space slug things like floating around with like literally. I'm not saying he's just pooping out stuff. He was like he has little holes open up and project energy out, and then it goes and like creates like a little sphere. And we're like, what is happening for like 5 minutes with this weird music?
No, I think that's what it was. That was their like space travel, but it didn't establish it very well.
I have no idea what's going on.
As this hand. It always
this little hand kept appearing and dissolving. There's a lot of dissolves in this movie that was really annoying for me. Like every sequence was dissolving. If it was like a character talking, it would dissolve to the person he was talking to, dissolving backwards. So anyway,
if you were gonna compare it to like Lord of the Rings, it would have been like, there's a city called Minas Tirith, and then there's this other city over here, and we're gonna just start in the battle. See, they're fighting. Isn't this cool? Don't you care about these people that are fighting? And they're like, no.
And here's a shot of Arwen with just her shoulders, and Aragorn with his shoulders.
Arwen and Aragorn. Aragorn's this really cool godlike character. Oh, they must be in love. They're making out.
So I have no idea. I mean, what's that for the plot? The main guy has this prophecy or vision. He's supposed to be like the savior of this world. These mining people. He gets there, drinks this magic water that's supposed to bring him torment and pain because that was the setup from the box earlier. And nothing happens. He just wakes up.
All other men that drink the special magical stuff died. And
they didn't die. They failed.
No, they died.
They failed to live, which is
the
death.
The girl says, "Oh, they didn't fail. They died."
Yeah,
that's what she said.
So they failed and died.
Thanks for clarifying that for us.
So then,
and what is? I thought they were gonna go and like find this magical water.
She just had it.
Yeah, she had it.
Green tea.
And why does she have to take him out into the desert to give it to him?
She takes him out to the desert, ties him up in an 80s those little tube jump ropes.
Yeah, why did she have to tie him up?
And the guy, and they had to bring all the men with them, and like 4 of them had these ropes. He tied him up,
and then everybody starts bleeding. Even the people back at home start bleeding from the face.
Yeah, and he stands
because reasons.
Yeah. So then from there he goes and teaches them how to like put grappling hooks on the sandworms and how to drive them. Now they all hear him and he controls them, and then the space
he taught them
pyramid
how to do the tabernacle choir weaponry.
Their awesome weapons. This big, this little stone comes up. I can't remember the word for it.
That was actually one of the best parts of the movie. It was like
the training.
Yeah, he's like, punch this rock.
It's a big thing. He's
kick this rock.
He says, come and punch
shout at this rock, and they're all like, oh, shout at
and they can't do anything. They punch it, nothing happens. Kick it, nothing happens. He screams out, nothing happens.
Chop it with the axe, the vibro axe.
Yeah, there's a sword. And then he's like, no, you fools. And he's like, I will show you. He pulls out his gun that they don't have. He puts his little microphone. It speaks into his little cancer microphone.
Oh, hallelujah.
And then he blows up. And they're like, why did you make us look like idiots when you have the gun and we don't have the gun?
No, he was teaching them that they're not God because of reasons.
All he had to do was walk in and shout at the thing, and that would have been the exact same effect. So then they show this training montage for literally 2 shots. One guy shoots it, and a little piece breaks off, and another guy shoots the ceiling,
like
and
he
the
misses.
happens.
And they're like, all right, you're trained.
Yeah, he's like, well, they're ready to go.
And then it does this weird thing where it's like a montage for like, oh, he took over the world and 20 years passed.
It's like skipping. Yeah. And it just shows him looking all valiant and noble, and then it shows
he destroyed all the spice mine things.
Yeah.
And the fat guy's very angry about it.
And they go out with their voice guns, and like it shows them shooting down all the ships that come in from the sky, and there's one or two guys shooting, but everyone's wearing black leather padded armor, and you can't tell who's shooting at who, and everyone's just shooting their little smoke guns off into different directions, and everyone just falls over, and all you see is him just like looking all mobile. So you're like, I guess he's winning.
Well, there's a lot of like weird scenes too, or it was like almost theatrical, where they're like, okay, let's skip to the scene where the guy's head's cut off and in the floor, and we'll have a dialogue about what happened during the plot.
We'll just tell it, right.
And they come in and like, oh, we killed that guy for some reason. And and there was a couple of disjointed like things like that where it's like skipping.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's like, tell us what they're saying and thinking like 3 or 4 times, and then just don't show us any actual development of romance or the battle or anything like that. Just like jump right to the end and then tell us what happened.
And
in
like
the
for a movie that was in such a hurry to tell so much, there were a lot of really slow.
Yeah.
Like flying through the spaceship, we had at least a good 5-10 minutes of them flying through the desert.
And he's like, do you think we're gonna see a worm? He's like, I hope so. And then comes up, and after 10 minutes of watching them fly on the desert with this,
like using their microphone, saying stuff that is completely irrelevant to the movie, like ship 1 calling ship 2, let's have a conversation.
And they have these ships that can travel through space, and they all this technology for how to breathe out their nose and in the mouth, this weird technology to survive on this planet. But their radio technology is like World War I communications.
No,
like
it was even worse than that. Yeah, World War I. Like it was the 80s. They had wireless technology.
But they're like,
I mean,
they pull up the throw a rod and talk.
It wasn't cell phones, but still, I mean, they had.
Mind you, this is after Star Trek. Star Trek, the series with communicators, was in the 70s.
Yeah, so, and then there was a lot of like weird, like almost steampunk, like stuff. Like it was hilarious when they jump in their like battle station. It's like all steampunky, and they're like,
at the end battle, the Imperial, the generals or whatever, like all the foot soldiers are running out of the pyramid, but they're like, they jump on this like, it's like a what's it called, a submarine,
like a periscope,
but they're all staring at the same thing that rotates all together, so it's not like they're on their own guns; they're just all staring into the same.
Like,
gun.
no, it's my turn to shoot. And then the battles were just a mess, like. Because you couldn't tell who was who, which side was which. It's like, okay, you got the guys in the black suits, then you got the guys in the black ponchos with masks. Then you got some guys. Remember when they like put on white suits for some reason?
Yeah.
And they never established why, and they never use them.
And when they weren't in combat, they were all wearing German/Russian military uniforms from World War II, and they looked the same, and they had red patches and stuff, but it looked just like it was an Indiana Jones movie, and you couldn't tell which was which because they were all the same thing. Just
you're like, what's going on? Yeah. Like, is that which of those 4 planets are those people from?
Anyway, okay, well, story's a mess. Characters development didn't really happen. So, I guess music and sound.
Like, what happened to his mom?
She
starts out as like as like a priestess.
Well, wasn't she holding the sister?
And she's like, no, don't let my son take the test because he might die. So she was like really scared. Then
the wife is like, yeah, he'll be fine.
then he passes us. Then they go to the spice planet, and she starts out as like this lady of high accord because they wanted her. I think they wanted her to teach them
shave her head,
special magic voice thing or whatever.
That
and then she disappears. And her son becomes God.
The daughter killed her because the daughter turned evil for a minute, and she became the daughter with the blue eyes.
The little girl? No, she
was good, but she had that demonic voice for a minute.
No, that's what I don't understand. Is like his mother had her, and then she became like the queen of the Ben Jesuits or something. But how did she get back to the planet to have his?
They stopped to pick her up on the pyramid stopped to pick her up on the way. Anyway, so yeah, but sound, the music kept getting all operatic.
There was some decent, a few times, tracks.
And then suddenly you just have like this electric guitar score in the middle of nowhere, just like one chord,
which was sort of like Mad Max-ish. Yeah. And it was cool, but
it didn't fit any of the music going on. It just happened like just literally for like a second. It's not like it'd be like a little riff. It'd just be like one chord, and then it'd just go back to the opera music.
And then the water, it's like, we're gonna take you. Okay, desert planet, you gotta like recycle your piss and
you spend time telling us all
that's cool. Then they take him to the secret underground pool where they have tons of water.
Right.
And we have no idea how much water because it's
they just tell us there's a shortage, but they don't show us.
There's a million decaliters.
Decaliters. We're like, okay.
Can you tell us how many that is in gallons?
We're an American dumb audience. I don't know what a deciliter is.
And dude, I don't even think like if you ask someone in Europe what a deciliter is, they would know. Anyways.
And they don't show really the body of water. They're just all going in contraptions. It shows one guy turn into a corner. I thought he was like peeing in a filter or something. I don't know what was.
And then they blow up the mountain for some reason. I think it's so the worms can get through or something.
Yeah, for some reason the worms couldn't bite through.
Yeah,
they can eat the mining machines and the drone or the vehicles and space stations and stuff, but they couldn't get through that granite rock.
Yeah,
it's just like Tremors.
And then at the end,
10 years later.
And then at the end, like, did they forget about the water, or did he like cause it to come up in rain?
All of a sudden he's like, I am Neo from Matrix, and he like suddenly like these rain clouds come in and like this water rises, and we're like, well, what about the worms? They're really drowning somewhere.
And what happened to the deciliters? Like, wasn't that important? Yeah. And then like,
the whole planet would be. Those rocks.
He doesn't need to use the voice thing anymore, which proves he really is God.
He's the true king. It's just like Neo, and that's not like Neo. It came way later, but
and the Sting fight scene. So
at the end, there's a knife.
A little thing pops out of Sting's like gut that's gonna like has poison on it or something.
I couldn't.
And then he's
the
like, "Oh, I have to bend like a reed," and then he jumps on Sting and stabs him. Like, okay,
yeah.
What does that have to do with bending like a reed?
Yeah. And then roll credits, like instantly, just cut. No final narration,
which
no
was
epilogue.
Fine.
It was
Me
just...
and Tim clapped at the credits, but it wasn't because we liked the movie.
Yeah, it was not an applause of appreciation.
It was because we were glad it was over.
Yeah. So we talked about special effects, music, character, story. What's my plot? Well, plot and characters. I'm missing a category, but I don't care. Music and sound. Oh, cinematography. You talking about cinematography?
Well, that's what I was saying. Like, there was a lot of visceral shots and like
there was
a lot of like weird, artsy stuff going on. Yeah. Like I said, that's what they should have made. They should have made it like a pot smoking movie for like.
So we were like, if we were on something, or if we were on acid or something, we probably would have understood the movie.
No, I wonder if David Lynch was
stoned.
Like, his brain was fried when he made this movie or something.
Not a good director, I will say that. And some of the shots were actually pretty cool.
No, David Lynch is a good director and he's a good screenwriter. Just
probably a screenwriter. I looked at his credits. I didn't recognize anything in it.
And a lot of people have said, well, he didn't have enough time to make the movie he wanted. There's also this rumor that like there was never a director's cut of this movie, and if we got the director's cut,
I felt like we just watched the director's cut.
But I seriously don't think that's true. Like, I find it really hard to believe that that's true.
He's like, oh, if only I had creative control over my movie. It's like, Anyway, some of the shots were really cool, but I think directing wise, he didn't film the right stuff that to progress the movie along, and the things that he did film, it was artsy, but it wasn't relevant, so I don't think that really worked. So I mean, it was okay, interesting, and for artsy people, like film students, probably could enjoy what he did with his directing. But
I'm not gonna watch this movie again, and I'm not gonna like. I can understand why it didn't do well in the theaters, because you're not gonna go home and be like, "Hey Tim, you should see that Dune movie."
Dune?
Oh, it's awesome.
No, I'm busy watching Return of the Jedi on VHS. I don't care about Dune.
Yeah.
And in comparison, when you think about that, this came out a year after Return of the Jedi in the theaters. Yeah. And I looked it up. It was what, 40 million or 60 million or 40 million to make the movie, and 37 in box office.
Yeah. And this was before you could go to China and sell DVDs and like make 4 billion or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So Lance, would you recommend?
No.
Would you recommend someone buying this or watching it if it came on streaming.
No,
I think it has once in a while. In the last couple of years, I swear I've seen it somewhere.
I mean, if you're into certain things like costume design, it had some really cool sets and stuff like that.
Yeah, and props. And there was some really cool. What was the thing that was called? That big huge tank when the weird monster came in, like, was really cool. The throne room was really cool. The Imperial probe droid hallways and staircases were really cool.
Yeah,
I didn't really like the interior of the shuttle that was like 8 feet tall with leather couch cushions on the inside.
Their like literal land speeder was like not very creative. It's like a box. It's like a box turned sideways.
Yeah, really tall. I was like, what? Why do we need all this space inside the canopy? These people are normal size. It was funny. Some of the I don't know costume design. Actually, the costumes were like the big collared. The Baron and his friends,
or whatever, the dry suits, whatever, they were cool. I
think they look really awesome.
They're iconic. Like, I remember if I think of Dune, I think of the scene where all those guys in their black suits are like on the horizon there, and he walks down with his shovel that he's about to show them how to ride worms with. Like, that's an iconic scene right there. But.
See, in most movies that have like a desert environment that are really fixated on the reality of it, they're gonna have like goggles, to show like how bad the sun is in your eye. This movie is like, we're gonna focus on the nostrils. So like, everyone has little tubes, and then they had to have this whole conversation about why the tubes were important and everything. I'm like, okay, that's interesting, but aren't you a little blinded by this big sun?
And it was really creepy that the big fat dude was always floating around.
Yeah, and they didn't explain that. Like, why was he floating? And after she slit his throat, he started like spinning, like he was like didn't have control.
She like gave him a titty twister. She's like,
she broke something.
And he's like, I'm dead.
So was it someone in a suit? Or you just didn't explain it. Whatever. All right. But he was the most fascinating character. It was very interesting to look at. So if you want to watch this movie, I recommend you cut through the scenes with the Baron and just watch those scenes.
No, don't watch this movie. Just watch like a YouTube commentary on it. It's like 20 minutes long.
Yeah. Of the Baron. So the Baron in Doom, very intriguing, but be ready. It's disgusting. Cringeworthy for sure. And that's about it.
It felt a little bit like if you showed. I remember watching the with the Skeksis and the
Dark Crystal.
Yeah, I remember watching Dark Crystal as a kid and being like creeped the heck out about it.
Yeah.
This is that kind of movie where like if you saw it as a little kid, it would like give you nightmares until
I think if you're a teenager having acne problems, then you definitely would have nightmares from this movie. I don't know what a kid would even be able to comprehend anything going on.
No, they wouldn't. But that's what I'm saying. It just had imagery that was very like horror-like and very like just awkward and strange. Yeah, horror.
Psychedelic.
Yeah.
I think the Dark Crystal has way scarier imagery and characters and stuff, but that would be very
but it has a
clear
plot
to a kid. Yeah. I was to say a kid can pick up on what's happening in the Dark Crystal. Nothing in this except for crazy zip popping. So anyway, don't recommend it. Watch some cuts of the Baron from the Dune movie, 1984. Check that out. Don't watch the movie. Not worth your 4 hours of time. But anyway, thanks, Lance, for sitting through this. I could not have made it through this movie without someone to
I'm
riff
worried
off
now. Like, I'm seriously worried now that it's ruined the book for me. So I'll go back and read the book and be like, oh, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see.
So we will give you a comparison when the new movie comes out. So we can see Zendaya give
hopefully
discussion
there's actually a love thing going on there, and it's not just.
Oh, you think she's the wife?
She is.
Oh, I thought she was the. He was like hearing her voices and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, but then she has the tubes in a couple.
No, she's the girl.
Or the whatever.
She's the girl he falls in love with. That's what I'm saying.
Maybe we'll get a hot shot of Zendaya with her shoulders exposed.
Yeah. No, this is the way the movie's gonna go. Paul's gonna land on the planet and go up to Zendaya and say, I had a dream about you, and then they're gonna start making out.
Like, okay, since there's not many options here. All right, don't watch the movie. Check out a YouTube video so you can see some of the images we're talking about. The Baron for sure, and that's it. We'll let you know when the new one comes out. You'll know when the new one comes out. But we'll tell you what we think, and Lance will give you a breakdown of the book. He'll do an analysis. Yeah. Once she's done with that 600-page book.
Yeah, psychological sci-fi. I'm gonna totally.
We're gonna have him read a whole thesis on it right here on Saints on Cinema. In the meantime, thanks for watching. We'll catch you later. Cut.
Okay, I'm going home.